Week 4, running back start sit. Keegan, why don't you kick us off here with the running back that you were starting this week?
This guy is maybe a bit of a surprise to be in a start sit segment. This is maybe somebody that you are not expecting much of at this point as he recovers from a pretty serious knee injury. But this guy's name is Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is splitting a ton of work with Samaje Perine right now, and the Denver Broncos are not exactly the most effective offense in the NFL. But Keegan, why would you want to start Javonte Williams? Like, Javonte Williams hasn't done anything. Listeners, it's because he's playing our dearest beloved Aidan Holler's Chicago Bears this weekend. Right now, the Bears are giving up 34.7 PPR points to the running back position, second worst in the league behind Denver, whose numbers are probably skewed because of last week's matchup. Had they not gone absolutely nuclear on Denver, I'm sure Chicago would be the worst defense against fantasy running backs. Chicago, 13th most rushing yards on the season, and they've already allowed 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. Javonte, interesting enough, is averaging 2.4 yards after contact, made for 7th best in the NFL. He's already got 11 targets. He just hasn't hit home with a touchdown yet. I feel like he's shown a lot of progress, and he's starting to look like Javonte of old. This feels like a good get-right spot for Javonte.
I'm with Keegan. That was actually my start of the week, too. And I think it's a surprising one, given that he hasn't touched 10 fantasy points this year.
Nope.
But like the volume too has been pretty consistent. He's right around a 50% snap share. Like it's not like he's really being ramped up by any means. Like the volume has kind of been about what we thought. I thought I take that back. I thought it was more so going to be like a ramp up period where he starts 20, 30, 40, 50. He's right around 45% snap share every time. But yeah, this defense can't stop anyone. They average about 150 total yards to the running back position on a weekly basis. This isn't likely to change this week. The defense is extremely banged up. The defensive line is pathetic. Yeah, he's going to get home. It's a pretty plus matchup for him. I'd be willing to say him and Perine are both starts this week. I wouldn't go as far to say Bogo, but if you have either one of these guys, they should probably be in your lineup. As these two defenses are so bad. If you have players on either side, like you're starting them, like neither one of them have proven they have the capacity to stop anything outside of like a college offense. It's awful.
If you've been holding the Javonte bag, this is kind of the week, right? It's like, okay, we're 3 weeks to the season. You've rehabbed your injury a little bit. You're getting back in the swing of things. You now have a pretty cheddar matchup. I started Rachaad White week 2. He was my start of the week against the Chicago Bears, and he did not disappoint. So I think Javonte is a fine start against the Chicago Bears this Sunday. My start of the week here, it's more of just an appreciation post, so to say. Like if it was on Instagram, hashtag appreciation post. For James Cook. Okay, James Cook is my start of the week this week. This guy's been so good, and we talked about it through the draft process, why we wanted to draft him, and why his ADP was such a sharp place to take him. This guy's 3rd in rushing yards. He's 6th in yards per carry. He's 12th in missed tackles forced. He's 2nd in runs of 10-plus yards. And he's 10th in yards after contact per attempt.
Now do the touchdowns. Do the touchdowns.
Yeah.
Do the touchdowns.
Check this out with James Cook. So per fantasy points bell cow report, James Cook, even without the goal line carries, has the 9th most valuable RB role in fantasy through 3 weeks. That's pretty damn good even without the touches. And if you want to break down, because Keegan's being a hater, his like percentage breakdown: 60% snap share, 49% attempt share, 49% route targets, 12% target percentage, 49% of the routes, 12% target percentage, but only 17% of the teams inside the 10 carries. Aidan, this is the week, right? This is the week he gets some carries inside the 10, right? That's what's happening, right?
I was like furiously like typing, trying to find the tweet. I think he's number 2 in the NFL for most amount of touches without a touchdown. The dude is unbelievably due. He even had a couple red zone touches last week, which like my ears were like fully perked up. I was like, here we go. I'm pretty excited for this. This might be the time. But I don't think he scores in the red zone this week. I think he's going to break one from. I'm calling a 36-yard rushing touchdown. I'm calling my shot down to the absolute yardage. James Cook hits home this year. Pater does a super cool dance that I will learn. So I'm pretty fired up.
This is almost like 2 in the air, one one on the ground.
Yeah, no,
in the air.
We're fully calling our shot. Babe Ruth. Yeah, no, I'm doing it all.
Okay, so he's been an excellent runner. He has a great role, right? 36-yard scamper touchdown is what Aidan's calling. Now he gets one of the juiciest matchups in fantasy, and this is the Dolphins' rush defense. So if you haven't seen our matchup preview episode, go check it out. It's great. We covered 3 priority matchups you should be targeting. We break down pretty in depth why we want James Cook against the Dolphins' rush defense. But essentially, the TLDR, the Dolphins don't stuff any runs, and the Dolphins give up a ton of yards before contact per attempt. If you're going to give James Cook a bunch of yards before he is even touched on top of his tackle breaking ability, it's going to create a 36-yard scamper situation that Aidan's touched on. So I am very excited to start James Cook this week. People have got him really high up in their rankings. I am really confident about where he's going to land, and I'm starting him this week. I think it's an easy start for me. Start James Cook.
James Cook and Javonte, baby. James Cook and Javonte.
Oh,
but
gosh,
more importantly, who are we sitting? It's not all sunshines and daisies.
Before we move on to sit of the week, if you have made it this far into this episode, we appreciate you for being a part of the Mean Team. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, notifications turned on. We appreciate you for supporting us. It means a lot to subscribe to this channel. Keegan, running back sits. Who is going to be on your bench this week?
I went back and forth on a couple backs. It was kind of hard to decide who I wanted to sit this week. But I'm going to sit Breece Hall. This feels like maybe an obvious one for people. But
no.
What's unfortunate is the usage for Breece is increasing every week, and he looks plenty healthy. But there are a lot of problems outside of Breece's health and usage that you need to take into consideration when you go into this matchup. First off, negative game script for the Jets. Chiefs heavy favorites. There could be a low volume of running opportunities as it is just by game environment, even if the Jets were playing a little bit better and they had some better metrics to tie to them. But Dalvin Cook's still getting some short yard snaps for them. Kansas City is bottom of the league in points allowed to fantasy running back position this year. They've only allowed 1 rushing touchdown on the year. Right now, he's projected about 47.5 rushing yards on the underdog, like nothing crazy. He ran the ball 12 times last week, and he got 18 yards on those carries. I mean, the underdogs, the negative game script, the lack of rush blocking ability from the Jets right now, just the overall shit show that is the Jets. It's just not a good week to start Breece, and it sucks because his usage is very encouraging, and they're getting a bit more Breece involved as they should and giving him more touches, but I just don't think it equates to like good fantasy output quite yet. Jets run blocking is generating just 0.66 adjusted yards before contact. That's the 5th fewest in the NFL. And they're also 26th in run blocking win rate right now. So bad environment, bad team, bad coaching, bad matchup. Don't do it.
Wow.
I could feel really the pain in your voice. Wow. Yeah, that's felt
brutal.
I know the sit segment is normally like, it's a bit down, but yeah, no, I felt that one, and I agree with you there. If I owned him, I would not be playing him this week. Let's keep this thing rolling. This is a guy that you probably have to start given where you drafted him, but I just think it's an awful spot. It's Joe Mixon this week. I think brutal matchup this week at the Tennessee Titans. Just peeling back the onion a couple layers here. The Titans currently are giving up the 6th least amount of fantasy points per game to the running back position. Lethal at just about 14 points per game on a weekly basis, which is not great. Mixon in general has been pretty mediocre, which is just kind of like what we've come to expect from Joe Mixon, aside from like the 140-point week you get from him. But like he's averaging 12.5 points a game, good for running back 15. Like he is what he is. He's Joe Mixon. He's kind of close to being over the hump. And he's attached to what we thought was a really good offense, which is struggling. This offense is struggling. Just kind of a couple more stats here. Yeah, the Titans are giving up just over 50 yards a game on the ground. If the Bengals are going to beat them, it's going to be through the air. They've surrendered the third most amount of passing yards through 3 weeks. If they're going to have any success, Joe Burrow and that calf are going to have to muster up some courage, because the way to beat the Tennessee Titans is not through the ground. We've already seen it with a couple running backs ahead of him. So it's just a tough matchup for Joe Mixon. It's probably like he's got to find pay dirt for him to get even close to his projection. There's no chance that between rushing yards and receiving yards alone, he matches his projection, which, if I had to guess, is probably right around his average of 12 points. So tough matchup. You probably don't have a choice but to start him, but it's not encouraging. You're not doing backflips having him in your lineup thinking, here comes the monster week.
At least he looked okay last week, but yeah, I'm not. It's a tough matchup, and you got to think they're going to beat him by passing the ball. So I like that. My sit of the week is a guy that I'm a fan of, but I don't think I want to play him this week, and that's Rachaad White. So Rachaad White has an elite role. 80% of team
He's just
snaps.
ping-ponging back and forth in between start sits.
And I have a theory, so I'll hear it. But 80% of team snaps, 57% attempt share, 65% of the route participation, 11% target rate. He's the 13th most valuable role according to Fantasy Point's expected fantasy point model. So thumbs up. We love that for Rachaad White. However, the thing we don't love is Tampa Bay has PFF's 25th ranked run blocking unit. They've generated the 7th worst yards before contact per attempt, and they've been stuffed on 53% of their runs, which is 3rd worst. The Saints have surrendered the 7th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. They've given up the 9th fewest yards before contact, and they've surrendered just 1 rushing touchdown this season. This game kind of seems like a slow slog divisional matchup. I can't really predict how it's going to go. But the only way Rachaad White is going to hit home in this game, in my opinion, is with a rushing score, or he's going to have to get there through the air as a receiver. But through 3 weeks, Baker's been ultra aggressive. If you have Mike Evans, it's because Baker's looking downfield trying to make shit happen. He's playing for his NFL career, and he's just throwing the ball deep. Not a ton of checkdowns to Rachaad White. And until Baker's proving that he's going to take those checkdowns, White's a guy you're going to play in plus matchups because of his elite role, and is a guy you probably are going to want to avoid in bad matchups because his offensive line's bad. So, and I did a bunch of research. Rachaad White's like a top 15 ranked PFF running back, good pass blocker. He's just has a bad O-line, and he's not that good, but he's not awful, and it's just kind of a bad setup if he's playing a good defense. So I'm sitting White. I'm good off White this week.
I'm with you. No argument for me. Feels like his kind of flaws are just getting kind of magnified this year. So yeah, it's tough watching him.
So we're starting Javonte Williams and starting James Cook, and we are sitting Joe Mixon, Rachaad White, and I always forget Keegan's. My brain, it turns into mush.
Breece Hall
first.
Breece Hall.
Breece Hall. That's where we're sitting this week, fellas. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.